So my name is Sophie Karangaro. I'm originally from New Zealand. My family are from the North Island of New Zealand. I'm currently living here in Perth, Australia, and I'm a PhD candidate studying at Curtin University. I guess I was really informed of who I was as a child because we spent a lot of time with my father's side. Time with family. My father's family were really rich, happy memories for me and with all my cousins. Did we speak the language all the time? No, but we spent a lot of time together, and that time together included swimming and eating and gathering and lots of laughs, and those are real memories for me that I think informed, so I'm Māori, yes, this is how we are, this is how we be, and this is how we do. And I think as a young child I have really strong memories of that experience. And as a child, seeing that and again being informed of my culture and identity was something that wasn't spelled out to you. There wasn't a handbook, there wasn't like a process in terms of, this is what we do as Māori. It was just a way of doing. And probably the most that I learned about my culture was through attending tangi. So tangi are funerals, and as a child I think I attended a lot of funerals. One being my lovely mum who passed when I was 9, and that was actually a very impactful time for me because I got to see how, as Māori, we live and do and be as Māori when we're taking care of those who have passed. It was a really impactful way for me as a child to confirm my identity. Like I knew, so as Māori we really take care of our loved ones even if they pass, because with Māori we don't leave the loved one who's passed on alone. So it's those little things that I learned, and being at the actual funeral, there's a process to things where we welcome visitors who have come to say, give their respects. We do this in song, we do this in karanga, we do this in whaikorero, which is speaking and presenting, and being exposed to that, I think, as a child was the most powerful thing, I think, for me to understand who I was as a Māori. I think about where I am now, and statistically, looking at the social determinants of Māori as a kid growing up in the 80s, whether a single parent in government housing and very poor, kind of like a suburban upbringing. I don't know if I should actually be where I am. I think for me, Indigenous self-determination, or mana motuhake, which is the Māori word for it, is self-governing, being able to move forward with your own destiny despite. And I think for me the key word is despite and regardless of this happening to our people over time, colonization happening over time, poor health outcomes, low educational attainment, all of those things. Despite all of that, for me, I think is Indigenous self-determination. It's quite timely that I'm doing my study on celebrating Indigenous self-determination, and then I'm able to, it's almost like finding a gap in my cultural identity that's been missing, and this has also almost been like a vehicle to reconnect with that, and so that has only empowered me. So I've reconnected with cousins, I'm aware of my mother's pepeha or ancestry side of things, which has been really powerful for me, and again that's just driven me. I think it's about drive, and moving forward. So the motivations for me to study at university, specifically starting my PhD, is a quote from Linda Tui Weiss-Smith, a Māori academic and researcher, kind of goes along the lines of when we, Indigenous people, tell our own stories, that is a form of resistance. And that motivates me because I know that we have a lot of stories we can share. And the best way for us to tell our stories is for us to tell our stories. So that motivates me because I understand all Indigenous peoples have a lot of similarities. There's a collective way of thinking. We're mindful of people that have gone before us, that have brought us here. So I think in a study in a university, I guess ways to connect to our Indigenous self-determination and ways of being. The examples that stand out to me are, first of all, to find your people. Like, I think it's important to network and connect with those who you trust and those who are perhaps on a similar journey. Often it's difficult to find ways to support your way of thinking when you are not the dominant cohort, So I think that's important, finding your people. The other thing I really try to do is to challenge the status quo. By that I mean, because it is a Western organization or institution, a university, the ways have always been the same. So it's a very westernized way of research. Looks like this. Ethics looks like this. Your expected outcomes look like this. But I'm learning on my journey of connecting to who I am, learning from other Indigenous scholars doesn't actually have to look like that. In a university context, I think it's important to have mentors, so obviously I've got amazing supervisors and I'm aware of others in the space that I can go to, that I can trust, that keep me in line with, my research focus, but not necessarily just academically, which is important, but culturally. Having that cultural advice as well as the academic advice is really beneficial, and I would recommend that. Often we are the first in our families to maybe graduate, get an undergraduate degree, so that's a tricky part, to find that support among your close family and friends. It's important for my family and friends who perhaps haven't studied, which is fine, but they actually ground me because they are not in this kind of headspace that I am. So in terms of asserting Indigenous self-determination, one thing I'm learning and trying to practice is privileging Indigenous ways of thinking. So by that, I mean, it's decentering the Western white lens and centering and re-indigenizing the way that we do things. It's a practice and it's work, and I actually feel more empowered the more braver I get, and that comes from, doing your research, listening to people, meeting mentors, knowing what research is out there by Māori scholars, Indigenous scholars. I think that's important. The other thing I think is important is for us as Indigenous people to be able to define and measure success on our terms. Success is defined by us, and this is how we want to show you, not necessarily the white dominant culture telling us, based on research they've done about us, what we should look like, be like, and live. Yeah, so I think that's an important thing, and I'm still trying to practice doing that. I know for sure up until now it's been empowering. So when I think about future learning beyond what I'm doing, it's pretty exciting because I have a lot of people who have come into my life, be it academics, mentors, people in the community, and opportunities, have really broadened my mind to even look at postdoc study, which is really exciting. I would love to look at that especially, again, following on the Noongar and Māori um, community and involvement living here in Perth, because I'm learning that there's a real sense of identity, and there's a lot of beautiful blended families as well that have both the Noongar and the Māori ancestry, which I think is something to be celebrated. And that's where my head is at the moment, perhaps to look in the future. Yeah, I think it's important for us as Indigenous people to, be open to lifetime learning, and I think that's important. We can always do better, be better, and to practice that comes a humility, which I think as Indigenous people we hold anyway. You have to be brave, and I'm learning through my studies, and I guess with age as well. The more I know who I am, the more empowered and brave that I can become.